Like if you want to be successful, right? If you find satisfaction out of positioning well, then you're going to be successful in Overwatch. If the only way that you have fun in a video game is through like killing 6, then you're not going to be very successful in Overwatch. Why does everybody care about mechanics so much? So like, why are mechanics so important in Overwatch? One of the challenges as a coach is like understanding that like people are always going to try, like inherently going to try and go for the play that feels the best mechanically. Like, let's be honest, mechanics matters a lot in Overwatch 2. But not only does it matter a lot, it also feels the most fun to go for. Like when you have a great positioning, a great like spot with like cover or corner or something like that, and you win a fight because you survived, you don't go, dude, sick, I'm the greatest of all time. You don't brag about your positioning necessarily, unless you're like major nerd, you know what I'm saying? So when we talk about like the problem with mechanics is that it's the most satisfying skill expression in the game. And the reason why that's a problem is because it will put your emphasis on something that may or may not be the most important thing and most impactful thing for you to be focusing on. So when you talk about mechanics, the problem with mechanics is that it's because it's the most satisfying skill expression, it gets sometimes a disproportionate amount of focus and a disproportionate amount of positive reinforcement. Again, if I do a really good job with Ana and I have like really good positioning, you know, am I gonna remember that game for a long time? Maybe, maybe not. But if I play like a bot, right, and I'm like standing in the middle of nowhere, but I hit like a 360 sleep dart, I'm gonna remember that game a lot more. Even if I fed the rest of the game because I hit that one nano blade Genji sleep dart. I think keeping that in mind and trying to, whenever you're trying to work at something like your positioning or cooldown usage or your ultimate usage, like trying to congratulate yourself or try to point out the objectivity of your value. Like if I'm playing Uncover and I avoid a death, I should go, wow, that's really good. You know, it's like people say that being a nice guy doesn't always give you a lot of positive reinforcement in real life necessarily, but it's still the right thing to do. And I think that's kind of the way I look at positioning, right? Like, let's put it this way. If you own a muscle car and you got a babe wife and you're making 6 figures, you know what I'm saying? Does that make you successful? Not necessarily, but that's a lot of what we visualize when we picture success, right? And I think that's not good. And we should do our best to try and think about success in the game as being something that's more objective than just, you know, a crazy mechanical shot. And see, that's the thing, is that's also what wins games too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not sexy to position well, but it's gonna win you games. It's gonna win you a lot of games. Being smart about how to use your cooldowns or making good decisions or about tracking threats or ult tracking or something like that. It's not sexy, but it's gonna win you games. So I actually think there's like 2 different types of people. There's either like people that do things like that without even realizing that they're doing it. Like they position well just by like through accident, almost like through trial and error without even realizing it. And I also think that there's people that are, they're able to find satisfaction about doing the little things right. Like if you want to be successful, right? Like if you find satisfaction out of positioning well, then you're going to be successful in Overwatch. If the only way that you have fun in a video game is through like killing 6, then you're not going to be very successful in Overwatch. I mean, people do this in MMA all the time. Like if you're trying to find out like who's going to win an MMA fight, right? On TV, look at the guy that looks more jacked with a lower body fat percentage, right? You're like, that guy's going to win, right? But it's not really the case, is it? You know, the technique and the other skill besides like the physique is a lot more important, right? But that's what we immediately gravitate to. And I think that's the same thing too. Like when you want to watch like a high level player, what's the first thing you look for? Oh my gosh, look at those crazy shots that they're hitting. But that's obviously a lot more complicated than that. Here's the thing, though. There's always like a balance here, right? Like I see people think that like mechanics don't matter in Overwatch, but that's like literal horse manure. Like mechanics matter so much in Overwatch, just as much as like any other first person shooter. Mechanics matter a lot, but they always will feel like they matter more because of the satisfying expression of skill that mechanics provide. And so if you want to improve, if you want to rank up at Overwatch, you need to make sure that you're not overvaluing the dopamine-inducing things, the directly dopamine-inducing things, and undervaluing the less flashy, but more valuable things. And I think that's like a good life philosophy too, right? He talks about when pride comes with habits, they become more important. Right. That's actually true. I didn't see. So I haven't read the book yet, but that is true. So like, if you're able to find some sort of pride in your positioning, in your cooldown usage, and your decision making, then it's going to be a lot easier to stick with it. Like mechanics matter the most in Overwatch 2, I would say, more than any other skill. But that doesn't mean that they're not overrated, because I think that they are. Not by the people that are watching this Twitch chat necessarily. If you're in my streams, you understand the importance of game sense and stuff, but largely as a whole. And I think it's more of a philosophical question as to why that is. And I think it's because we attribute mechanics to being the more visible, sexy representation of skill, not necessarily the more consistent, concrete representation of skill.